Hello, this is the Beyond Belief Sobriety Podcast, where we examine topics of interest to people who are seeking a secular path to sobriety or to recovery from addictions of all sorts. And today I have a guest who turns out to be sort of a neighbor. We're both in the same state. He's on the other side of the state than me. But it turns out that he pops up over here my way every once in a while. So hopefully I think I might have a new friend. His name is Scott Hartman. And the reason I found him is I was interested in learning about people who are getting sober through social media. Hey there, Mark. How you doing, buddy? Good to see you out there. People who are getting sober through social media. There's a lot of Facebook groups out there, people that are in recovery, helping each other, and they're not really affiliated with any organization. They're not part of AA. They're not part of secular. They're not part of anything. They're just people who get together on Facebook. And I found Facebook groups for sober people who like to get together to walk with each other. I found sober groups for people who just meet to talk about books that they've read. I've ran into sober groups for women. Sober groups for all kinds of different types of people with different interests, and I've run across some groups that are set up for people who are just sober curious, people who just think that they might not have the life problems that a lot of us had with alcohol, but they're just kind of thinking that maybe for their own health they might want to stop drinking. So there's just a lot out there. And while I was doing my research, I ran across a Facebook group. Is it Sobriety 101 or Sober 101? Scott. Oh, you're on mute, Scott, but I can take you off mute. Doop, unmuted. Is it Sober 101? Scott, you are muted, my friend. You might have to unmute your phone. Anyway, I think it's Sober 101. I can't unmute my guest because his mic isn't connected yet. Got to connect your mic there, Mike. There he is. Hello, Scott? Okay, a little technical problem. We were working this a little while ago. Scott, your audio isn't working. Your microphone isn't connected. So these are the dangers of going live. But anyway, if you'll work on that, Scott. So he's in this Facebook group that has 24,000 members in it, and he says that he moderates a lot of other Facebook groups, so he's pretty familiar with dealing with people in recovery in social media. And so I thought he would be a good guest, and he will be as soon as his audio works. So my story with social media when it comes to being sober or getting involved with other people in recovery on social media started back in really 2014. And what happened is I went to a conference for agnostics and atheists in AA. And after the conference, we started a Facebook group. And that Facebook group is where we all kind of stayed connected after the conference. And from that Facebook group, a huge community grew. And shortly after being involved in that Facebook group, I met someone in that group who encouraged me to start this podcast. So I'm doing this podcast as a result of that. And that was like almost, 6 years ago now. So it totally transformed my life. I have since started a Facebook group for the podcast, which has evolved into something else, which has about 2,300 members right now. And I have found it somewhat of a challenge. And I thought that maybe it would be fun to talk about some of the benefits and pitfalls of Facebook groups. And you can participate. There are people out there that are watching right now on YouTube, and you can participate. Okay, here comes. Hello, are you there? Okay, hold on. I'm going to turn you off here. Hello, Scott. Hey, Scott, why don't you call back in and why don't you get off of StreamYard and call back in on the phone? It's okay. All right, he's going to call in on the phone, and that'll work just fine. We should have done that to begin with. Sorry about that, everybody, but we still have plenty of time. And Mark says this will be interesting. Yes, Mark, it is interesting. It's interesting when we try to do something live. Here he calls right now. Hello. Okay. Mark, I'm sorry. I don't know what's going on, but I mean, hold on. It's me on my end. I'm sorry. I apologize, everybody. Let's see here. Here we go. Scott.
Hello?
There he is. Got him. Got you on. Okay. We have Scott finally on. Okay. All right, everybody. Here we go. I'm sorry. Okay. So a little bit of a delay there, and just took us about 6 minutes. So we'll just cut that out when we put this on the audio version of the podcast. But I don't know if you heard much of what I was saying there, Scott, but I was introducing you as somebody who knows something about Facebook groups on for people in sobriety or people that are getting into recovery. And I was talking about your group. I think it's called Sobriety 101.
Yes.
Yeah. And can you tell me a little bit about that group, like when you started it and how it's grown, and maybe some of the pluses and minuses that you've run into since that group has been going?
Well, that group was going before I even got into recovery. And then I don't know how I ended up getting connected with the people that started that page. One's in Arizona and the other one's in Pennsylvania.
Mm-hmm.
And since I've been in recovery, I've been blessed to personally meet both of them.
Cool.
And hang out with them.
Mm-hmm.
And then they asked me because, on my page, I always try to post, motivational, kind of uplifting. If you're having a bad day, it's okay to have a bad day. Just don't pick up a drink, don't pick up a drug.
Mm-hmm.
So they asked me to be a part of that group. And it's just, it's amazing how it's grown since then. And it was growing before I got on there, and it just continues to grow like a lot of other Facebook groups.
Yeah.
Because especially when COVID hit and a lot of meetings were shut down,
Mm-hmm.
Sobriety 101 and so many other groups out there, that was kind of like an outlet for anybody that was struggling,
Mm-hmm.
whether they were, they wanted to use, they wanted to drink, they wanted to, they were just fighting depression and isolation, because everybody has, at all times, everybody has their phone in their hand.
Right.
And, I've seen it, if somebody's been struggling, they will put a post up, and, if it's a female that's struggling, there'll be females that'll be commenting and privately message them and just help them out. And
Mm-hmm.
that right there is just it's a beautiful thing.
Yeah. So was the group spawned off from another recovery program, or was it just started by individuals just without any connection to like AA or NA or anything like that?
It was individuals
Mm-hmm.
that support all forms of recovery
Mm-hmm.
that started it, and they have there's another group. It's a Rockin' Our Recovery that's got quite a few members in it. And I think Warrior Kings and Queens, those were started, and then I think Sobriety came after that. But it's not like we say you got to go to AA or you
Right.
got to go to NA or
Right.
you got to do this.
It's just kind of really a casual gathering of people who've just kind of come together for a common purpose.
Absolutely. Because at the end of the day, we want everybody to be able to go to bed at night without using
Right.
and without relapsing.
Right.
And, unfortunately, relapse does happen. And if it does, and they come back in, they're going to be loved on, and they're going to be,
Mm-hmm.
Supportive.
Yeah.
They're going to be supported and encouraged. Now, the negative side of that, and I don't care what recovery group you're in.
Right.
If you see somebody that they come on and they say, well, I had 3 years and I relapsed, there are going to be some people that are going to judge, and there's going to be some people that are just going to just slam them. And that's the negative side.
Right. Right.
Because it shouldn't be like that.
What I find, I don't find that so much, but what I do find is like with the group that I moderate, the AA Beyond Belief Facebook group, that's a book that was set up specifically for agnostics and atheists who have found a way to navigate AA in a secular way. Okay. So they interpret the steps without God and all this kind of stuff. And so it's kind of like, it's interesting because they're all there for that. They all have that in common. But that doesn't mean they have everything else in common. And they have that one thing in common. And the thing that causes problems with the group is that sometimes they're not very tolerant of another atheist way of doing something. So let's say, for example, believe it or not, there are atheists who might pray. You know, they're not praying to a God, but they like to pray because it's something that makes them feel good. Or there are people who might find spirituality is important to them, even though they're non-believers. There's a wide spectrum of people who consider themselves secular, who have different forms of spirituality, ranging from zero, none, like me, to very spiritual on the other end. And so there's sometimes some argument within the group over that kind of thing. And also there's the problem with a lot of the members of that group felt like they were harmed by people in the traditional AA who are trying to force their belief system on them. So you have within the group a lot of dissent and being fomented about other organizations. So it's like you don't have, it sounds like your group, people might come from different walks of life and they don't have that kind of tension.
Right. For the most part, yes.
Okay.
But there's always going to be people out there that are going to say something negative. It's just going to happen. Now for me, my higher power is Jesus Christ all the way.
Right.
Even though I was mad at God, I'm not today. But with that being said, if somebody comes to me and they're an atheist or they don't believe in God, I'm not going to treat them any different.
Right. Right.
And that's the way it should be. You don't treat somebody.
That's the way it should be. And I think it is that way for us in our live group. So like in my home group, for example, which is a special interest group for atheists and agnostics, if someone we do have believers that come there and they're totally welcome. But it's just in the Facebook group itself where it can become problematic. I've seen people like post like a meeting for like a big book meeting, you know, the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous, and they're just going to have a big book meeting. And others in the group will assume that those people can't possibly be secular if they're going to have a meeting about the big book, and then they'll try to delete that post. It's like I was actually an atheist who was read the big book, so I don't, right. So it's just like that kind of tension I see quite a bit, and then there's also people can get a little bit on the negative side sometimes about those who may have caused problems for them in the past. So it's just, I don't know, there's a fine line, I guess, sometimes between venting and bashing, and so that's something that our groups have to watch out for. So yeah, you did tell me that you're part of Celebrate Recovery, right?
Absolutely.
Okay, so
absolutely.
So that's something that a lot of the people that listen to this podcast and participate in our Facebook group and stuff and so forth would have problems with, but that's okay. They don't need to go to that group, but I still think it's interesting to learn about it. Can you tell me a little bit about Celebrate Recovery and your involvement with it?
So right now I'm doing a step study. It's a men's step study with Celebrate Recovery.
Okay. So Celebrate Recovery, do they do the 12 steps like from AA?
Yeah, no matter what group you're at, what AA, NA, CA, HA. I mean, the 12 steps come from the Bible, and then AA, and then every.
They do. You're right about that. You're right about that.
Yeah, it comes from the Bible, and then Bill and Bob started AA, and then and God bless him for doing that, because of AA. There's been other groups branch out from that. Right. Now there's some HA groups that do that read out of the Big Book.
Mm-hmm.
NA does it a different one, but like with Celebrate Recovery, we do the steps out of the steps are the same, but it just gets your walk with Jesus.
Okay, so it's specifically it's Jesus oriented. Basically, it's really it's a group for Christians. It's a Christian organization. Yeah. Okay.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's but anybody is welcome to Celebrate Recovery. You know.
Sure.
But it's you know the steps is where the freedom is.
Mm-hmm.
At least that was for me and so many other people that I know. But at the end of the day, what works for you, John, may not work for me.
Right.
And what works for me may not work for you.
Right.
But I'm not going to treat you any different.
No. And it's good to have the choices. I mean, if somebody, if I have friends, podcast friends who are devoutly religious, and they go to church on Sunday, and they have that part of their life, which is different than mine, but we still are friends, and we talk with each other about podcasting, because that's something we enjoy,
Right.
But I would never put them down. I mean, if that faith is important to them and they wanted to use that faith to help them with some problem, then that's fine. I think that I would support that. And but the only line that I draw is like if somebody were to say that you must follow my path, you must believe as I believe, and that may happen by some people, but most people don't do that. I don't think so.
No, but the unfortunate thing, whether it's in a recovery group or what, people are going to think that, and they're going to judge because people don't do it the way that they do
it. Exactly. And that happens a lot in AA. From all sides, there's people who believe very firmly that the Big Book gives really specific instructions, and you have to do it exactly this way, and they might they become just very, very narrow about the path in AA. It becomes a really narrow path. Whereas there are others who will take a more liberal approach to the 12 steps and see them more in more practical terms than some people might. And some steps they might discard altogether and not have anything to do with them at all. And so, and they might say, that's the way it's supposed to be. And then, so one thing I learned, and you and I have talked a little bit about the peer support, peer support. Certified peer support specialist that I've just become and you're working on. One of the things that I learned there is that your recovery needs to be self-directed, and everybody's experience has to be unique, and everybody has to find something that works for them. And that's what I think sometimes is missing when we silo ourselves and within our own little niche communities. And that, going back to social media, is what can sometimes happen, is if we put ourselves in little silos where we're only talking to people who think like we do.
Right. It and it just goes back to when I got clean in 2016. For me, how everything went down, that was all a God thing. It was all a God thing. But I was beat down. I was broken. I had no fight left in me. I didn't know anybody. I was just done. Right. So I started, I went through treatment. And then when I got out, I took every suggestion that people gave me and I did it. Mm-hmm. And I went through the steps in AA, early on. And I have to treat my recovery like I treated my life in addiction.
Right.
I got to do something for it every day. Because if not, I'm going to go back. The problem that I see with a lot of people, you've got your AA Nazis, you got you got the NA Nat, you've got all that, but times are changing, and people, there's a lot of more mental health issues now,
right?
That we really didn't know about in the past. So we got to meet people where they're at, and we got to help them find something to grab onto that's going to keep them around for another day.
Right. Right.
And again, whatever they grab a hold to, whether it be a kid or whether, family member, husband, wife, it's going to be different for them than what it was for you and it was for me.
And I got that sense when I'm scrolling through the post of your group, your Facebook group, Sobriety 101. I get the sense that that's how people are. I have not seen any dogmatic post or anything there. It's mainly people posting about their experiences with their recovery. Like someone will announce that they've been sober for so long or whatever, and people get congratulated. Or someone might announce that they've had a slip, and then they're given some encouragement. That's all really positive stuff. And I know that within that group, there probably have been other groups that have spun off from it, people that probably have met there who have found other interests in common or something and started another group. I'm just amazed by everything that I see out there in social media when it comes to recovery. There's a lot out there for people to avail themselves to. And you're right, with COVID now, when you can't get to a face-to-face meeting, it's handy to have that.
But the downfall to that is, one, you get the negative and you get the judgmental people. But two, then people rely solely on social media for their sobriety.
Right.
And you cannot do that.
Right.
You can't. Because it's, you've got to have, it's easy to get a network of friends on social media that will help you in your recovery. And if you reach out to somebody and they call you out on your BS and they don't co-sign your stuff, it's easy just not to talk to them anymore.
Right.
You can block them or you can unfriend them. That's why people need to have somebody in their area that they can talk to on the phone and they can see face to face. That's vital for the recovery. It's vital. I
never thought of it that way, but you're right. I mean, there's been people that I have blocked on Facebook because I just didn't want to deal with them, right? Well, in the real world, I don't have that opportunity, do I? I have to somehow find a way to manage that relationship with a difficult person.
Right.
You don't really have to learn that skill, but of course it's done differently on social media anyway, because you're typing something to someone or whatever. But it is a different dynamic. I can tell you the one thing I've missed so much from COVID, and I'm not alone, is the human contact.
Absolutely.
I talk to people like you on this podcast, and I talk to people. I don't attend as many Zoom meetings as I used to, but I can go to Zoom meetings, etc. But everybody is on a screen, and
right.
That gets to me after a while. It has gotten to me. I'll just put it that way. It has gotten to me where all human contact I have is on a screen, whether it be people I work with, people in my recovery groups, my friends, everybody's on a screen now and have been for the last year. And I sound like a total whiner because I know I'm not the only one in the world who's living that way, but it has got to me. It has got to me. There's no doubt about it.
Oh, absolutely. I was glad when meetings opened up back here in St. Charles because I'm a hugger.
Yeah.
And, I'm a hugger or a handshake. It doesn't matter. And I like that face-to-face interaction. And instead of just on a computer screen.
Right. See, I don't know. I guess that they've opened up here, but I have not gone to any face-to-face meetings. Where my group, my home group, they have not started meeting in person yet. The place that they meet hasn't opened up. But I think that probably this summer, as things start getting better, more people get vaccinated, we'll probably start meeting again, I think, which will be nice.
Well, I know through COVID, the meetings up in like around St. Joe, Missouri, and then like in Leavenworth, Kansas, and they were still going.
Well, it figures. It doesn't surprise me.
But, Kansas City was on they were on a total lockdown.
Yeah, we were.
You guys, because I was up there a few times during COVID, and, just even trying to find a bathroom.
Yeah.
Was crazy. So I'm glad that you guys are starting to open up. And then come summertime, if you can't have it inside, it's warm enough, do it at a park. That's what, there was some meetings we're doing up here. They would meet at a park.
There are some meetings, some groups that did it. Most of the groups in Kansas City, I think, are not meeting in person, although I think there are more that are now than that there have been. But I'm familiar with St. Joe and Leavenworth. I went to high school in Lansing, which is right next to Leavenworth. And so that whole area of northeast Kansas, Atchison, St. Joe, all that area I'm pretty familiar with. So it doesn't surprise me too much that they would meet, but that's okay.
Right. It, but it's, you just gotta, people have to find something that's going to keep them from going back out.
Right.
And social media, yes, is a positive thing, but that can't be the only part of somebody's recovery. Right. It just cannot.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, I see a lot of people that's all their recovery is recovery groups.
Right.
And some stay strong, and then I see others that, they're gone for a minute, and anytime I see somebody disappear for a bit, somebody in recovery, I think, okay, they relapsed. Mm-hmm. I pray they didn't, but 9 times out of 10, that's what happens. Because they don't have any type of network in their area.
Right.
But the recovery groups can be a phenomenal thing. Mm-hmm. Huge support. Now there's some groups that, if you talk about certain things, you're going to get hammered.
Right.
And it shouldn't be like that. And I left a lot of groups that did that.
Yeah.
That weren't encouraging, that were judging and saying, if you don't do it this way, you're not going to stay sober, or you're not going to stay clean. If you do it this way, it's not going to happen. Grow up, and just totally bashing these people. And it's just sad.
I left most of the social media groups on Facebook because a lot of in my little community, people like to debate recovery, and that's not my thing. I hate that. I absolutely hate debating about AA or recovery in general. It's just my least favorite thing in the world to do, because for me, my recovery is my experience. It's not up for debate. And I'm not going to debate anyone about it. It's period. End of story. And so I left every one of them for that. But I read this book, The Unexpected Joy of Being Sober, by Catherine Gray, and she talked about how her recovery was based upon social media groups, people that she met online, just small groups of people, and they later became face-to-face friends. And I started learning about groups of people who've met on the internet who get together for the purpose of supporting each other's recovery. And then I started looking at some of the Facebook groups for people in recovery, and I was blown away by what I saw. And what I saw was a completely different demographic than I see in the AA groups that I'm used to. So like in the AA groups that I'm used to, the people kind of are like me. They're older guys, and what I'm seeing in a lot of these Facebook groups, a lot of these social media groups, are people in their 20s or 30s. A common thing that they do is they'll post a picture of themselves when they were drinking and a picture of themselves when they're sober, and you see one after another of those, and I like it because it's just that it's a different vibe. It's a younger group. It's more diverse. There's more women represented in those groups than I see in some of the AA groups. Again, a younger demographic. They're less concerned about being anonymous and all that kind of stuff. And it's just, I don't know. There's something about that I really, really like. It's like an openness that they have about their recovery, and not just an openness about their own personal stories, but open about how they think about recovery. It's not for them like any particular support group. They might go to AA meetings. They might do a couple of other things too. They might go to Celebrate Recovery and AA, or different things, mix and match. And that's what I find so interesting, and kind of liberating, to be honest with you, when I see that.
Right. Well, and you got to figure it, in the past 2 years, I guess, the overdose rate has just been off the chart.
Yeah.
I think before COVID hit, I thought the numbers I saw were like every 8 minutes somebody died from a drug overdose.
Right.
And then about halfway through COVID, or near the end of last year, I think the numbers were like every 6 minutes or every 5 minutes somebody was dying from an overdose. And I think it's scaring a lot of people. And like for me, when I went through treatment, nobody came to see me. I was by myself because I burned every bridge. Mm-hmm. Okay. You get, with social media now, when somebody gets clean or somebody gets sober, however you want to say it, they can get on, they can post that stuff on social media, and it does two things. And this is just my opinion. Okay. It does two things. One, it gives hope to somebody else.
Mm-hmm. But
two, by them doing that, and people will like it or love it or say, I'm proud of you, keep going, it makes that person not have a loved one saying, hey, I'm proud of you for getting into recovery, keep up the good work.
Right.
And early in recovery, everybody wants to hear, hey, you're doing a good job, or hey, I'm proud of you. But if their families cut them off, they can get on social media and get that, and that may be just a spark of hope to keep them going.
Well, I read a book once that talked about it was actually based upon a study. It was a study called Project Match, which a lot of people have heard of. It's an older study, but it was one of the largest studies ever done about recovery. And they studied 12-step facilitation process, cognitive behavioral therapy, and motivational behavioral therapy as different types of ways of helping people with addiction. And one of the bottom line things they found out is, first of all, you have to really tailor their approach for individuals. But one of the most important contributors to someone's success with sobriety, and success being defined as continuous periods of sobriety, of abstinence, one of the key key ingredients to their success was adding people into their life who support their recovery, who support their desire to be sober. And it wasn't so much about having to remove people from their lives, but adding people to their lives who support them. That's what was so important. And when you join a big Facebook group like yours with 24,000 members in there, you're going to find a lot of people in there who suddenly support you, that you're adding into your life. Even though it might be virtual, at least you've got that. You're getting that. Because like you say, they could be living in a household where their recovery is not supported.
Right. And it holds you accountable.
Right.
You got people that support you online, and like the book you read where those people ended up meeting in person, and that's a beautiful thing. But you get accountability partners, and where you guys can check on each other, and and that's a beautiful thing, because nobody. They say recovery is it's not an I program, it's a we program. We got to do it together. We got to support each other, and we got to love one another and encourage and just help each other just make it another day. And then if we're blessed enough to wake up the next day, then we can work on that. So that's the beautiful thing of social media recovery groups. It's very positive, but yet you do have those negatives.
Right. The negatives come when the groups grow, by the way, what I've found in my experience. So like the Facebook group evolves over time. Our group, for example, was started specifically as a place to talk about articles that we would post on our website, AA Beyond Belief, or podcast episodes. It was started for that reason. And the reason I started it is because another Facebook group I belonged to, people started criticizing those posts. So I said, okay, I'll start my own Facebook group. But what happened is it grew and it grew and it grew and it grew. And as it grew, more and more people were joining the group that have never heard of the podcast, weren't interested in the podcast, which is fine, but it became a support group. It became a group for people to support one another in their sobriety. And I thought that's great. That's wonderful. And so it's continuing in that vein. There's people that are supporting each other in secular paths to their recovery, but still they're finding that support. But it's been interesting to watch the thing evolve over time. And I started that group, but it's not my group anymore. And it's actually now we've got like several moderators, and I think I could walk away from that group any day now, and that group would carry on and evolve in its own direction, the way it's going to evolve. I think that just like a real AA group, sometimes if you start something, the best part is to let it go and let other people figure out what it should be.
Oh, absolutely. Because in the process of that, like with Sobriety 101 and then, the other group that is connected with that, the Rockin' Our Recovery, they will ask people, they'll put a post up and say, does anybody want to be a administrator or a mod? And you get somebody that's like doing, that's about as close to doing service work as you can get, especially when meetings were shut down. Right. Service work at a meeting, you do coffee, you help set up, tear down, or get the chairs out or whatever. Right. Well, when there was no Zoom meeting, or when there was just Zoom and no open meetings, when somebody is responsible for kind of going through and watching the page and seeing if anybody's struggling, and because every group that I'm involved in, whether it be a mod or an admin, we all have just a private, we're in a private chat group on Messenger. And if one mod sees, or an admin sees somebody struggling, automatically goes into that group with all of us, and then we can jump on it and reach out and make sure they're okay. But it gives that person responsibility. Like if you walked away and some of those mods would figure it out because they've just been kind of watching, but that makes them feel good because they're doing something for their recovery. And that's just a beautiful thing.
I was wondering, how do you go about moderating? Does each moderator or admin have the authority, I guess, just to remove any posts that they find offensive, or do you guys have to come to an agreement on what you do?
Usually the mods go to the admins.
Okay.
And then they'll either, send a message to the person and say, look, this post isn't, you can't post this. This goes against our rules because you don't want to do a lot of fundraisers or
right.
And there's a lot of scammers that come in.
Sure.
And then the admins will say, okay, we're gonna put them in timeout for 24 hours, or and watch them, or if they keep it up, then they just have to leave the group. Because if they're not posting recovery stuff,
Mm-hmm.
They 9 times out of 10 they have an ulterior motive, and it's not to make sure somebody's going to be okay in their recovery.
Yeah.
They have something to gain.
Well, you guys are a lot more democratic than I am. I just kind of throw people out. I don't even talk to them anymore. It's like I did for a while, but it's like it didn't even matter. It's like, if I wrote somebody and said, you're posting stuff, people are complaining about it. Can you tone it down? Next thing they want me to go into more detailed explanations about why the stuff they're posting is inappropriate. Blah blah blah. And, it's like, God damn it. If you don't know how, excuse my language, but if you don't know how to just be a normal person in this Facebook group, I don't have time to explain to you, and I know that's a cruel thing to say, but I just say, I'm done. I'm done. But there are some people that just like to argue and, they like to provoke people. And that happens on social media. And I find it so odd because they wouldn't be doing that in real life. It's like you wouldn't sit in a face-to-face meeting with somebody and provoke them just for the fun of provoking them, I don't think,
No,
no. You do on Facebook.
Well, you're hiding behind a camera.
Yeah.
A computer or a phone or...
Yeah.
But with those people, it's all about, when I see people like that, I just pray for them because they're dealing with some demons on the inside that they just don't want to face. Yeah. And that's why they're lashing out at other people. Something's going on the inside that they don't want to face.
Yeah.
So to redirect that, okay, I'm just going to argue and I'm just going to keep doing this. And I just see it time and time again. So all I can do is just pray and hope that they work through whatever they're working through. And a lot of times, people don't do the steps honestly, so they don't truly work on why they started drinking in the first place.
Yeah.
And until you deal with all that, you are going to lash out at people, and you are going to, kind of break the rules a little bit or do whatever the case may be.
Yeah, and some people just have strong personalities. That's just the way they are, and that's fine. And you're kind of more free to do that when you're on a computer as opposed to just being in the room with somebody. But
absolutely,
I still think though, by and large, that it's been a positive thing. It's been positive in my life. I mean, I can sit here and complain about the various struggles I've had with moderating the group and all this kind of stuff, but when I look back at since 2014, since I've been in recovery groups on Facebook, it's changed. I wouldn't be podcasting right now if it wasn't for that.
Right.
And podcasting, I've been able to connect with lots and lots and lots of people from all over the world, and it's transformed the way I think about my own personal experience in recovery. And it has educated me about the way other people experience their recovery and has made me more interested in it more broadly. So it's really changed me a lot. And that was a result of that Facebook group, that first little Facebook group that I joined. Even the ones where I left, were kind of helped bring me to this point where I'm at now. And now what we're doing, since COVID, we started, like I told you, we start doing these live streams every Friday. And that's been a lot of fun because what it is Angela from Boise, a friend of mine, and I will come on every Friday night at 7:00 Central, and we'll do a live stream where we just talk about some sort of a topic that might be of interest to people that are in recovery. It could be almost anything, and we talk about that for an hour. And then sometimes we'll take callers and we'll get people commenting from people that belong to the Facebook group. Will go to that live stream and they'll comment in the chat. And next thing you know, it's become kind of like a Friday night meeting where we have a lot of regulars who go there every Friday night. And it's just really cool to have that. There's Anchor. Anchor, so nice to see you. Anchor is one of the regulars on Friday. Good to see you. Oh boy, this one was a rough start, Anchor, but we're doing okay now. And Anchor, what do you think about? Do you have any thoughts about social media and recovery? If you do, go ahead and type them in there. I'd like to know what you think about it. But for me, it's been overall positive, and I'm not gonna complain too much about the drawbacks. Although I know that they exist, and I kind of agree with you too, Scott. That at least for me personally, I do need something more than that. And I mean, I can tell that right now, and people who know me online know that I need more than more than that. Anchor says, "Good to see what you look like, John." Well, you know what? Thank you, Anchor. And you know what? I look different because I got a weird haircut today. I usually don't comb my hair this way, but she did it like that, which is fine. But it's right. But yeah, normally when we're on the live stream, I don't go on video, but I'm going to do that more of that now because we changed the name of this podcast from AA Beyond Belief to just Beyond Belief Sobriety. And the reason that I did that is because I respect the traditions of AA. It's great for AA, but they're not so good for a podcast. And if I want to really, if I want to reach more people, you want to use different types of medium. If I want to just enjoy what I do, I don't want to be limited by some tradition, so I like to do videos and stuff like this. So I have the freedom to do that now. And
right.
I like that. I like that a lot. So,
well, and for you, and I didn't mean to interrupt.
No,
go ahead.
No, you're fine. Go ahead.
For you, AA is what got you to where you're at now.
Right.
And for me, it was NA. NA got me to where I'm at because people in NA showed me how to live without using drugs and just how to be a productive member of society. I don't think I would be where I'm at today if I just did social media groups.
Yeah.
Because social media groups can't teach you how to be a member of society.
Yeah.
It wouldn't have worked for me. But the AA, all the 12-step groups out there, and we talked about this the other day on the phone. I personally think everybody should do the steps. And if you're a good person, you do the steps anyway.
Yeah.
If you've got a good heart, because it's now when you did the steps, was that freedom for you? Did you?
Oh, for me personally?
Yeah.
I mean, yes. I mean, the way I see the steps now, they were kind of, some of them were experiential. They were just things that happened to me. I got to that point where I admitted I had a problem and I came to believe that there was some help and I made a decision to do something about my problem. First 3 steps just happened to me.
Right.
The inventory process I found very valuable, and it's still something I rely on to this day. And then steps 6 and 7 for me are very practical steps where I just kind of work on character traits that I have that are blocking me from being the person I really want to be. And
Absolutely.
I've been able to do that through therapy and all these kind of stuff. So yeah, the steps have been kind of experiential for me. There has been also though that educational part of it to learn about, the practicality of these things. So yes, but like you, I believe that they're a description of a process, and it's almost a natural process that someone kind of falls into when they reach that point where they've decided that they have a problem with alcohol or whatever drug or behavior, and they decide they want to change. And I heard this expressed so well at a meeting, and it was a new guy, and he talked about the steps. He says, "Damn it." And we do cuss a lot. he said, these are just things that any decent person would do anyway. And he was talking about it like, I realize I'm a drunk. I realize I have a problem. I know I need help. I want to go and apologize to the people that I've harmed. I want to take a look at my actions, and you kind of look at it that way and say, yeah, I can see that. But for me, they've been kind of a nice framework for me to kind of follow. And I've evolved. I've been doing this for I'm going on 33 years now. So I have to look I have to look at myself in different periods of my life. So like, the first 5 years, I might've seen the steps in one way. And then 25 years later, I see them in a different way. It's been a process for me over a long period of time, how I view those. And so, and even now, what I say to you now about the steps, and how I feel about them could be completely different 3 or 4 or 5 years from now. So for me,
absolutely.
And that's been the amazing part of them for me. See, I got sober when I was just before my 26th birthday, and I'm 58, going on 59 now. So,
congratulations!
Well,
congratulations.
But the thing is that I'm saying that because it's like, for most of my time that I've been alive on this earth, I've been involved with 12 steps, right? And they're so ingrained in me that that's how I operate. It's the context I think in. And I went from being someone who just kind of went along with the God stuff, to being someone who's a total atheist who doesn't need any of the God stuff, right? But the steps are still in my life, and they're still part of my life. I do view them differently, but they're still important to me, and I still go to them. So, that's kind of a long way to answer what your question was, but that's just me kind of blabbing because I like to talk about myself, I guess. But it made sense, and now on my end, the steps were, the biggest one was step 4, mm-hmm.
and then making amends. But I do, I try to do the steps every day, and for me, it got me closer to God. And that's what, and that's a beautiful thing for me.
Someone's asking you a question, by the way, about the steps and Celebrate Recovery. They want to know, what do people in Celebrate Recovery do for a first step? Is there anything that they do in particular that's different?
It's just pretty much it's the same concept of the other steps.
Mm-hmm.
And you read the Bible verses and you pray, but you're admitting, that the steps, you're admitting you got a problem, you're powerless, and you're admitting that, there's like in AA, when you first come in, and even in A, it's God of our understanding.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And a lot of times and that's good, because it doesn't scare people off, because people are, like, for me, when I first came in, I was mad at God, but you're admitting you're powerless. And then there's Bible verses, and I can't remember the Bible verse because my memory isn't all where it should be. But then when you can finally surrender and admit that you're powerless, and you have that spiritual journey, then you just keep going.
Right.
But like I said, this
and the powerlessness, is it over alcohol or over drugs? Is that the power?
Well, the beautiful thing about Celebrate Recovery is it's not just for drugs and alcohol. You admit you're powerless over drugs. You admit you're powerless over alcohol. It could be food. It could be codependency. It could be depression. Whatever.
Smart recovery is that way too. Whatever your addiction could be. It could be sex addiction, gambling, whatever.
Right. It's and once you admit you're powerless over it and you totally surrender, then you're going to the next steps, and then you're growing and you're learning more, and then the journey to recovery is it's phenomenal.
Yeah.
It's phenomenal.
So I think that answers the question that the person had. They wanted to know, what are you powerless over? And it's just the substance that we're powerless over. And I was actually having a conversation about that with someone just the other day about the whole idea of powerlessness. And for me, I'm powerless over alcohol. It's not that I'm powerless over doing anything about it. I'm not powerless over my recovery. I'm just powerless over alcohol. And coming to that was like liberating. Oh, another good question from Anchor. Wants to know, is Celebrate Recovery similar to the old Oxford groups? You're familiar with the Oxford group that started AA?
apologize to Anchor because I'm not familiar with the Oxford.
The Oxford group was just like an evangelical organization that actually what they were doing, they were trying to replicate first century Christianity. And it started off as that kind of a thing, an evangelical Christian organization. And some people in AA, or what became AA, like Bill Wilson and Bob Smith, joined the Oxford group, and they had groups of alcoholics that got together, and they came up with a little process that was based on principles that they learned from the Oxford group that later evolved into the 12 steps. And so Anchor want to know if Celebrate Recovery is similar. I would think it's somewhat similar in that it does and correct me if I'm wrong, Scott, but it's similar in that it is is definitively religious, right? You are focused on a specific religion.
Just Christian.
Yeah,
I mean,
Christian.
It's not like because I'm not going to say I'm religious. I'm spiritual.
Spiritual.
You know, because and to me, there's a big difference because to me, there's a lot of religions that are that's a conversation for a whole nother day.
Yeah.
But Celebrate Recovery. It just gets you. It just starts your Christian walk.
Mm-hmm.
And the beautiful thing is, we've had people come in that were atheists, and we've had people come in that are agnostic, that aren't sure, you know, who got it, you know, whatever the case may be. And we love them anyway, and we invite them, come in, and just keep coming back, because if they're in there for that hour or that 2 hours, if they get the meal, because we have food, and then you do like a you do like a step study or whatever. They're not using and they're not drinking for that time,
right? You
know, so they're safe,
right?
But it's Christian.
Okay. Yeah, and that's where it is very similar to the Oxford group and different from AA and NA, where AA and NA they state explicitly that they are not part of any sect, denomination, whatever, and so Celebrate Recovery is, and that's great for the people who share that faith. You know, it gives them an opportunity to share that faith freely and openly with others who have that in common and can apply that to their recovery. Where if they did that in an AA or an NA meeting,
they would tell you to leave.
Yeah, they wouldn't like that, right? So it's almost like you're like on the other end of the spectrum of my group. So like our groups and secular AA. If we're a bunch of atheists, so we go in there and we say we don't need God, we don't need a higher power. If we say that in a regular AA meeting, we're sometimes not welcomed, right? So we start our own little groups, and the same thing on the other end, where it's really important for you to rely on your faith, your specific religious faith in Christ or whatever. And you want to talk about that in meetings, but that's not welcomed either. So you guys have to have your thing there. So it's like two ends of the spectrum. I think it's kind of interesting.
Right. And I do NA, but I also do Celebrate Recovery.
Right.
It's because it's I go to NA to support, and I always share some good stuff. But then for me, I go to Celebrate Recovery. And that's just to get my Jesus on, and I get good support, and for me that I just feel better.
Yeah.
But I grabbed a hold of that in my recovery, and it's just working.
Yeah. And
but again, I see people in there that's got codependency problems,
right.
and it's just. Some of it, people need to latch on to something, and because there's just too many people that are dying from whether it be cirrhosis of the liver, drinking too much, or drunk driving, or overdoses, or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just sad. Yeah. It's just sad.
Well, we've come up on an hour, so we may as well kind of wind things up. I will tell you, Scott, I've enjoyed talking to our conversations on the phone. And when next time you're out in Kansas City, I would like to get together, and I would like to watch you as you venture on into your future career as a certified peer support specialist, because I'm probably going to be doing that myself in the near future, and it'll be cool to kind of see how you're doing with that. So,
absolutely. It's like I told you earlier. I was honored that you asked me to come on.
It's good to have you, and
hopefully the questions were answered about the social media and the pros, the cons, but at the end of the day, people need more than just social media.
Yeah. No, you did a good job with that, and I appreciate it. So I'm going to go ahead and say goodbye to everybody. That's it. Another episode of Beyond Belief Sobriety. Thank you for listening, everybody. This will be posted actually pretty soon. I need to do some editing of the front part, but other than that.
Right, and I apologize.
No problem. So anyway, thanks for listening, everybody. Be back again real soon. Bye-bye.